Hello there, it's Mr. Chime from weeklybagel.com. Today I am back again with another episode of the Weekly Bagel podcast. And I believe this is episode 19 of the Weekly Bagel podcast. And if you have been an avid listener of my podcast, episode 1 through 18, we are all about guiding you towards moving out of your parents' house and getting a place of your own to be able to start your journey as an independent young working class adult. And I believe you following the steps that I have outlined in these episodes actually helped you along your journey to secure a place of your own. Because I believe that for every young working class adult or any young working class adult that needs to actually start the financial independence journey, you have to move out of your parents' house. That is my belief. This is because moving out of your parents' house will expose you to new challenges. And it is these challenges that will make you a better person. Because for every problem that you solve, you know much more about how to solve other problems that are going to come by. Do you believe that? Well, I do. And I'm speaking from experience, being a fellow young working class adult who is still trying to figure it out, but is in a better place compared to when I first started out. So what am I doing today? What are we going to be talking about? Well, today we're going to be talking about the next big thing called credit, because this is going to determine how easy or hard your journey as a young working class adult trying to assemble a semblance of financial stability, how your life is going to be. Now, in the United States of America, credit is king. I know you may disagree. You may be like, oh, Mr. Chime, I've heard cash is king. Yes, cash is king, but let's face it. Most young working class adults that you see around, whether they have a job paying up to $60,000 a year or less, don't have up to $10,000 saved in their bank accounts. So for those young working class adults, cash is not king. Credit is king for them. That is because in the United States, you're not going to be able to achieve much, afford much, or have a semblance of a comfortable life without having good credit score and credit history, particularly credit history. This goes from buying a house or buying a car, affording an education through the acquisition of a student loan. You may not be able to have access to these things if you do not have a very good credit history or a good credit history. Now let's talk about what credit scores and credit history is all about, what they're all about. Well, before I jump into this, I want you to now start shifting your mind from someone who just moved into an apartment trying to figure it out to an adult who is going to make it in life. Remember, think about this. When you are trying to find a place of your own, let's say if we go back to the first few episodes that we did, where I was trying to lay the foundation of you getting ready to move out of your parents' house, you were probably anxious, right? You had fear because you were trying to figure out how it was going to be you leaving the shadows of your parents, leaving the comfortable parental nest to go stake your own claim out there in the big wild world, right? And you did it, and now you have a place of your own. Yes, that's a very big step. Now, what I want you to start thinking about is, how am I going to sustain this newfound freedom? Because what you have right now is freedom, right? You have a place of your own. You get to make your own choices. You get to tackle your own challenges without the help of mommy and daddy. It's just you battling every new challenges that come through your way and actually conquering it and becoming a better person. So what I want you to think about is, how are you going to be prepared enough to set yourself up for financial success or financial stability. And that is by building credit. Now, let's go back to what I wanted to talk about. What is a credit score and credit history? On episode 6, I remember you and I talking about the kind of credit score you need for an apartment. And I believe in that episode, I briefly explained what a credit score is and what a credit history is. And I could remember I told you that you having credit means your ability to acquire loans or debts and pay them back in a timely manner. So in the United States, you have something called credit bureau, and when you go to a bank and you borrow a loan or you get a credit card and you have an active debt and you're making payments on time or you're not making payments on time, whoever loaned that money to you, the financial institution that loaned that money to you, will report your credit behavior. That is your ability to pay back those debts to a credit bureau. And we have 3 big credit bureau in the United States. You have TransUnion, you have Equifax, and one other one that I can't think about right now. But your financial institution will report your ability to pay back the debts that you acquire to these 3 credit bureau. And what these 3 credit bureau do is they will rate your ability to make your payments on time or pay back all your debts on time, and assign scores to it. The scores that they assign to it is what we call a credit score, right? And this credit score usually have about 4 or 5 categories depending on the kind of credit score model it is. You have poor credit rating, you have good credit rating, you have very good, you have excellent, and you have a bad credit score, right? And your credit history is a compilation of all the loans and debts that you have acquired during your adult life, and your ability to pay back those payments, each of the debts that you have collected, how long you've made the debt, how long you own the debt for, how long it took you to pay it off, whether there are missed payments or no missed payment, or there is no missed payment, whether you actually succeeded in paying back the debts. All these records are on your credit history. And why is this important? Well, this is important because in the United States, when you're about to go get a loan, say you're about to buy a car, and you know in the United States, most of us don't have the money to pay for cars in cash, especially if it's a new car or even if it's a used car, but it's about a few years older. It still ranges from $15,000 to about $40,000, right? And you don't see a lot of young working class adults like you and me carrying that money around. So what we do is we go to the bank through a car dealership and we acquire the loan that will help us buy these cars, right? Now, without a good credit history or a good credit score, or even if you don't have a credit history or a credit score, it's going to be very hard for you to get this loan. Why? Because banks want you to have credit history, because it tells them that, hey, you've borrowed money before and you actually paid it back. And it makes them happy, and they want to loan to you because they know they're going to get their money back and their interest too. So it is very important that now that you've moved and you have a place of your own, to begin working on the next big thing, and that's building your credit, because that is going to open doors for you. Unless you want to be, the kind of adult that pays everything in cash. If you have a very good salary where you can afford that, well, I would recommend you to do that, because after all, nobody wants to be walking around with a lot of debts, right? But sometimes it's inevitable. You have to acquire debt to be able to afford some things. That's why building credit is very important. Now, at what age can you start building credit? Well, I said as soon as you turn to be an adult. The legal age of adulthood here in the United States is the age of 18. Yes, as soon as you start working and you turn 18, or you are 18 years or above, there are some credit card, there are some credit cards out there that are called status credit cards, and some of them have very low interest, or they will give you interest-free period, which is usually about 9 months to a year, for you to acquire some debts and then pay those debts back slowly within the introductory period for you to be able to build enough credit history to actually have one. That's a credit history. So the age that you need to start building this credit is 18 and above. How do you start building credit for the first time? Well, what I usually tell young working class adults, and I did this when I was in my early 20s, was to go to the bank, go to a bank, maybe your bank, and tell them to give you something called a secured credit card. So, a secured credit card, as I mentioned on episode 6, is the kind of credit card where you deposit money to the bank. Say you put down $500, right? And a bank is going to create a credit card for you that is tied to that $500, and the $500 is locked. It's locked as a collateral, just in case if you renegade on paying back debts that you acquire on that secured credit card. The bank can go into that $500 and deduct the money automatically. And this is quite safe for young working class adults that are just starting out. It makes sure that you don't acquire debts that you cannot pay off. This is because the limit of the amount that you can borrow, that's your credit limit on that secured credit card, is going to be the amount that you deposited. That's the maximum you could take out. So you could go to your bank and you could ask for something called a secured credit card, and your bank is most likely to oblige. Some very good banks that care for young working class adults actually have secure credit cards for young working class adults that are starting out to build credit for the first time. And they will actually help set you up nicely in such a way that you won't be so much in debt by the time you're done paying off your credit card debt. This is because the maximum credit limit on those secure credit cards are usually tied to the amount that you deposit. So that means you cannot acquire debts more than the amount that you put down as collateral for the secured credit card. And it's set up in such a way that, say, if you put down 500 and you're spending, like, you're using the credit card to pay gas weekly, and you're making payments at the end of the month, within a year to 18 months, you should have a very good credit history, a nice credit history. Maybe it may not be in the very good range. It could be in the good range. It could be in the fair range. Like I mentioned, there are 5 categories of credit scores, right? You have the bad or poor credit score. You have fair, you have good, you have very good, and you have excellent. Now, a year to about 18 months is enough for you to get up to fair or good credit score. That's with consistent payment of the debt acquired on that secured credit card. Yes. So this is what I want to talk to you about. Now that you've moved and you have a place of your own, it's time for you to start building credit. I want you to start thinking about it, because this is going to open doors for you. This is because if this lease that you have, expires and you want to go to another apartment complex, they're still going to need to know your credit score. They will still run a credit background check on you. The same goes to if you want to start college and you want to acquire student loans that will help you do that, unless you're doing it through the federal student loans. Private student loans usually want to run a credit background check on you, and most of them will not give you the loans unless you have a very good credit history. So it's very, very important for you to start thinking about how you are going to build your credit. There are a lot of credit cards out there that are structured in such a way that young working class adults can use them without getting so much in debt. One of them is something called the Chime credit builder card. I wrote an article on this. I think I'm going to attach that to this episode. And it's the kind of card that help you build your credit history. And with that card, what you spend is often tied to the amount that you have. The way you build your credit is whenever you make payments on what you spend, then Chime will report to the credit bureau, who is going to assess whether your payment was done on time and then give you very good points on that. Or if the payment wasn't done on time, or if you missed payment, deduct points on that. This is basically how you build your credit. Now, this episode serves as an introduction to building credit. On the subsequent episodes coming in, I am going to be elaborating more on this, and I'm going to talk about them in a way which is going to set you up nicely, so that way while you're working so hard to create a financial stable life, your credit history and your credit is good in such a way that whenever you need to afford a certain level of comfort, say you want to buy a car to help you get to work, or you want to buy a house, or you want to borrow a loan to go to school to acquire skills, you have good credit enough for you to qualify for loans that will give you access to these things. Otherwise, you're just going to be paying out of cash. And like I told you before, not everybody has that money. Say if you're going to buy your Toyota 2017, for instance, RAV4, you're looking at least $21,000. Not everybody, not every young working class adult has $21,000 to spend. Hence, why you need a good credit history. Because if you have a good credit history and then you go to the dealership is just going to help you find a bank that will give you a loan for the car at a very good interest rate. And remember, if you don't have a credit history at all, your interest rate is going to be higher than the usual interest rate that banks usually give you for such a car loan, or for such a car loan. Yeah. If you have a very good credit history and great credit score, then you are more likely to get a lower interest rate than someone that has, say, a bad credit score or a bad credit history. So I want you to be thinking about this. I want you to get into that mindset of, hey, okay, I'm living alone now. I got a place of my own. I got a job. I got to start fixing my credit in such a way that when I'm ready to make my next big move, I wouldn't have to pay out of cash for that. I can actually use my good credit history to get loans at a low interest rate that will help me accomplish the goal that I'm going for. Well, that's all I need to talk to you about today. Like I said, this is an introduction to building credit. I am going to be releasing more episodes on this. And I wish you the best. I hope you have a very good week. Chime out.